Hi everyone, my name is Eric Tuninga. I'm the business manager at the city, and I want to say thank you for taking some time to take a look at the city and ask the question, what is it? We're definitely going to get into the what of the city and walk you through the features and show you how the city works, but I want to begin by talking just for a minute about the why of the city. What do we care about when we talk about the city? We care about your mission. One of the things that we talk a lot about is, what's the point of the church? What's your strategy? What's your mission? What are the things that you care about as a church? That was our whole vision, where we came from. The city was originally built within a church. It was built by a guy who spent some time asking the question, how do we use technology to enable what the church is trying to do? And as he was asking that question, he was the pastor of technology for a church in Seattle. His mentor said to him, you know what, why don't you go away and spend some time in prayer and just listen to what God would tell you about how technology can better serve the church. So he did that. He spent some time in prayer. He was reading through Scripture, and he came across the Beatitudes, and he got to Matthew 5:14, which says, "You are the light of the world, a city on a hill which cannot be hidden." And as he started praying through that and asking God, what do you mean by that? What would you have me take away from this? He was really struck with the idea that, you know what? Technology has not helped the church minister to the people of the church. It's been great for administrative tools. It helps the operational side of the church, but it doesn't help the body of the church. It doesn't help the believers of the church who are living in community together to come together and serve one another and care for one another in a biblical way. And so he had this vision of building something, and he ended up building the city that would allow people the opportunity to come together in community, to communicate with one another, to share with each other what are their needs, what are their prayer requests, what are the ways that they want to organize as a church. And as they love one another, as they care for one another, that's the light of the world, being cast out into the world around them from a city on the hill and drawing the world unto the church. And so that's what we created in the city. And there's a team of people who are absolutely dedicated to that vision, to that mission of saying, we care about the church, we care about your mission, which is reaching the world with the gospel. It's about helping people to grow in their faith and go deeper in relationship with one another. So, as I mentioned, the city's built for the whole church. If you're on staff at a church, you're an admin or a pastor, we absolutely think that's great. And you're going to get a lot of value out of the city. But the truth is, the city was not built for you. The city was built for the person who's coming through the doors of your church on Sunday morning and sitting in the pew or the chair or whatever folks sit in at your church. Or maybe your church is growing like crazy and so folks are standing outside. That's great too. As a result, if it's built for everyone in the church, the city has to be easy to use. And it is. The guys who are designers, they spend every waking moment, it seems like, obsessing around the user experience. And you're going to see that as we get in and show you what it is. And finally, the church really is all about enabling your mission. I've had the opportunity to talk to hundreds, if not thousands, of churches about whether or not the city is a good fit for them. And one of the things I like to do when I meet with a church is to ask them the question, what's the mission of your church? What are you guys trying to accomplish? And it's almost always a variation on three key principles. First, they're trying to reach the world around them with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Second, they're trying to help people within the church to grow in their faith. And then third, as these people grow in their faith, they're trying to equip them and empower them to go out and serve the world around them. Some churches, they have the 4 Gs. Some churches, they have the 3 Cs. But it's almost always a variation around that theme. Well, the city can help in those areas because we're passionate about the mission of the church as well. So we can help you connect people to the church who are coming through the doors for the first time. A lot of people talk about, we have people coming to the church and we feel like they're falling through the cracks and they're slipping out the back door and we don't know how to connect with them. The city has some great tools to help you connect with folks. We have a lot of tools for helping you get people connected into places of community and then to communicate with their small group, or maybe they're in a Sunday school class together, maybe they're on a mission team or they're on a service team. The city has tools to help people find real, genuine community and to use technology to facilitate real-world relationships. And then finally, when you're ready to equip people and send them out into the world and say, go and do the great things that the church is designed to do, there are things in the city that are going to make that so easy. And I'm going to share some stories with you about how churches are meeting the needs of the community around them. They're introducing people to Christ because they're going out and they're simply being the hands and feet of Jesus in the world. So let's jump in and actually start to take a look at the city. The city is online. That's one question I get a lot. It's all in the cloud. Everything you need is going to be out there. You don't have to worry about installing it on your servers or keeping up with software updates or anything else like that. So we're going to get in and show you what this looks like. Now, this first page that we're going to look at here, this is actually, if I log into the city, this is what you're going to see. This is called my news feed. My news feed has status updates from my friends. If something's happened in a group that I'm a part of recently, the most recent posts are going to show up here on my news feed. The idea of the city is that within my church, I'm probably a part of a number of groups. One group in the church is the church. Everybody in the church will be a part of the church level group. Another group in the church might be my service team. Maybe I'm an usher on Sunday morning, so I would be in a group for ushers. Maybe I'm in a Sunday school class, so I could be in a group for married Sunday school class. Or maybe I'm in a small group or a life group. A lot of times people think that, wow, the city's really great for small groups, but we're not really a small group church. The city's not about life groups. We like them, we think they're great, but there are a lot of different ways churches can organize, and depending on what's effective for you in reaching the community around you, the city could probably fit that because people are still going to be organized within groups in some way within your church. And so we can look at what some different examples are there. But I want to begin the story by just saying, how do you get people into the city? How do you even start? Well, if you build out your instance of the city, one of the things you're going to want to do is get people to sign up for it. A couple different ways you can do that. One, you can send them an email. If you have a list of email addresses of everybody in your church, you could send out a massive list of invitations, and everybody would have a chance to join the city there. You could also create the groups in the city and then have your group leaders. Let's say I'm in a small group. My small group leader could send me the invitation, and now all of a sudden it's a very warm and personal invitation to join the city. So that's another strategy. A lot of folks come in through the children's ministry module, and we'll show you that in just a moment. But that's a great way to invite people into the city. Another option is we have people who use a kiosk. And a kiosk can be something that's on an iPad. And we've had churches where they have greeters who, they'll actually have an iPad in their hand, and they'll go up and they'll say, hey, why don't you sign up to join the city? And they'll just hand the iPad over and they can fill out the information. It drops them into what we call a connect group, and I'll show you the functionality around a connect group. But it helps them to capture the information. And now if that person sits down in the service and they never actually fill out a connect card or something like that, you've already connected with them, you've got some information from them, and now you have the ability to follow up. So there's a lot of different ways to get people into the city. We call it having many on-ramps, and we'll work with you if you decide to go with the city going forward. We'll work with you on what the best strategy is for your church. So I want to jump in and talk about that connect group. What does that mean? If somebody signs up for the city, what happens to them? Well, we talk about this a lot in context of assimilation or closing the back door or making sure that people don't fall through the cracks. So I'm going to jump into a connect group right here on the city. And what this group is, the idea of this is when someone says, I want to connect with the church somehow, let's give you the tools to follow up with them. And maybe they filled out a connect card, and that's great. And you captured that information, you put it in the city, and you said, hey, this person's new. Can you follow up with them? And you can assign them to someone in your church. And maybe that person's on staff. Maybe that person is just a volunteer. You can assign them to somebody and say, hey, would you follow up with them? The same thing if they go through a kiosk or through the children's ministry module. You can assign people to a connect group and say, we want to make sure that someone follows up with these individuals and we don't lose track of them. So on this screen here, you can see all the people that have been assigned to me to follow up with. So you can see Doug. He's an offline user. We simply captured his information maybe on a connect card or maybe through an old database that we had. We were able to put his information in the system and say, hey, would you follow up with Doug? Conrad, you can see, actually signed up for the city. Maybe he signed up through a kiosk. Maybe he responded to an email invitation. But the idea is, Eric, you need to follow up with these guys and make sure that you're reaching out to them and connecting with them. Well, if I click on Doug here and I click on notes and contact information, you can see that I have his email address and I've got his phone number. So I have the ability to follow up with him. I can then take notes about him and say, hey, here's what I learned about Doug as we chatted. Maybe I'm trying to help him find a small group. Maybe he's looking for an opportunity to serve. I can track all that information in here. And then there's different stages in this connect group. And these different stages are totally customizable by a church. You can have as many stages or as few stages as you want. But the idea is when you move someone through this process, you'll know where they're at. You'll know what the next step is to take with them. Maybe the next step is actually assigning them to someone else within the church who's going to reach out to them because they have questions about membership. Or maybe they've got questions about the children's ministry. Great, let's assign them to the person who can answer those questions. As I have a conversation with somebody, for instance, when we look at Conrad here, Conrad and I have been messaging back and forth. We've been sending emails, and I can see the history of that entire email conversation right here on the city. I know what the next step is to take with him. Conrad in his last message here says, hey, I've been off the radar. Sorry about that. but I'm looking for a community group in the downtown area. Is there one there for me? So I know Conrad's interested in finding a community group that's near his house. If I click on this little link right here that says Find a Journey Group, it's going to take me into a map that centers on Conrad and will show me all the groups that are around him. So I can scroll out a little bit. I can see where Conrad lives. I can see the groups that are around him. If I knew more information, like he was looking for a married group or maybe a singles group, if I click on one of these tags, which again, these are all customizable by you as a church. If I said he's looking for a singles college group, it will only show me the groups that are appropriate around him. If I click on a group, it actually tells me a little bit about this group. So if I click on this one right here, this is the Uptown Community Group. It looks like it is led by Pastor Will Yesler. If I click on Connect Conrad with Will Yesler, it begins a conversation between me, Conrad, and Will, where I can introduce the two of them to one another. And it's that warm handoff that says, Conrad, we care about you. I'm not just dumping you onto somebody else. I'm actually taking the time to introduce you to him. And then Will can reach out to him and say, hey, Conrad, we'd love for you to join us in our group, whatever that looks like. And they can take the next step forward together. And then I can go back into the community group or into the Connect group, and I can say, hey, you know what? He's now been invited to a group, or he's visiting an additional group, or whatever's appropriate there, and move him again through that connection process. So that's great. We can help people get connected. We can help you close that back door. Again, always doing that in a process that makes sense for how you do church. So what does it look like once somebody's in a group? What's the point of the city? Well, like I said, we're all about making sure folks can communicate with one another, that they can be in community with one another, and whether that's in the context of a service group, a small group, a Sunday school class. A lot of churches call them affinity groups. Maybe they've got hey, you know what? We've got a prayers and squares group. It's a bunch of women who like to get together and make quilts, and they pray over each square, and then they give them out to people who are in need within the church. Awesome. That could be a group right here on the city. So I'm going to jump into a group right here and kind of show you what some of the functionality is in a group. The neat thing about the city is once you learn how to use the city in one group, you're going to use the city in the same way in almost every group that you're a part of. So in my downtown community group right here that I'm looking at, you can see that we have topics, events, prayers, and needs, and photo albums. You can have those in any group that you have on the city. So a service team may have prayers and things like that in there too. So one of the things you can post on the city is you can post prayer requests. If I click on prayers, I can see all the prayers that have been listed in the city recently. The great thing about this is as soon as somebody posts on the city, it's going to email everybody in the group based upon their email settings. And I can have different email settings for the different groups that I'm a part of. Maybe for my small group, I want to get a lot more email than I do for the large church group. So I can turn that up and turn that down as appropriate, because the last thing you want to do is spam your church. So you can see here, I'm going to select I want new things from my small group. That means anytime someone posts something new, I'll get an email from that. Great thing about prayer requests, when you send these out via email, is you're immediately letting your community know what's going on in your life. I'll tell you a quick story about how this has impacted me. I was down in Houston on a trip visiting a church down there, and while I was there, I got a call from the hospice workers who were caring for my mom. Now, I'm a part of the city. We're based in Seattle. My mom was living in Dallas. I was down in Houston on a trip, and the hospice workers basically said, hey, Eric, you need to come now. Your mom stopped eating and drinking, and you need to get up to Dallas if you can. So I went on the city, and I actually posted a prayer request to my community saying, hey, guys, I'm not coming back to Seattle. I don't know when I'm coming back. I got to go to Dallas to be near my mom, but I really appreciate your prayers as it looks like she's at the end of her life. By the time I got to the Houston airport, leaving this church, going to the airport to fly up to Dallas, I do all my email on my phone when I'm on the road. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with emails that were coming into me from people in my community telling me how they were praying for me. My boss at the time actually jumped on and he wrote out a psalm. He said, Eric, this came to mind as soon as I read your prayer request. And I didn't have to go and check on the city and say, hey, did anybody respond to my prayer request? Because it was all tied to email and it came to me in a manner that I chose. Blessed the heck out of me. I'm standing in the Houston airport weeping. People are looking at me like, are you okay? I was like, man, my community loves me. It's incredible. That's just one thing that the city provides. So you can put prayer requests on the city. You can also put topics on the city. Great thing about a topic can be anything. A topic could be, hey guys, I want you to check out this video post. It could be a survey. I've got some questions I want to ask people, and they can jump in and put some information in about whatever you're asking about. jump in here, community group leader training. This is a discussion topic that Jeff started. And Jeff said, hey guys, a lot of you have asked about being a community group leader. Let me tell you about how training works. You need to watch this video. You need to answer these questions. So he embedded a video right here off of YouTube, as well as posting the small group training questions. So I can link to this and click on it and download the questions and go to the group training and be ready for that. You can also upload MP3s here. Any kind of a file can be uploaded, or picture, or whatever you would want to put on here. Again, this is going to email everybody in the group. Hey, here's the new discussion topic. We'd love to get your thoughts, responses. People can simply reply to their email, and their email reply is going to post here on the city. We're connecting people in ways that they choose. Other things that you can post in the city, you can post needs. Great thing about needs is anything can be a need, and you can ask people to respond and say, hey, what, can you participate? Can you help us meet this need? So give you an example right here. Meals for the Davis family is a great one. We want people to sign up and can you bring a meal for the Davis family? I can jump in, click on one of these dates and say, yeah, I can do dinner that night. And by simply clicking on it, I'm the one who's bringing it. Anything can be a need. So maybe you want to help out your next door neighbor because maybe you have a widow that lives next door and you want to help them get ready for winter. We've got one here that's repairing the Davis's home. And we said, hey, we need people to jump in and fill some of these needs. Can we clean rooms, gut the kitchen, do some repainting of the exterior? If I want to help in any of these areas, I can just check on this box and you know that I'm going to fill that particular need. I've heard stories from churches all around the country talking about different ways that they've met needs. There's a church that I worked with down in South Carolina, and they've got a ministry within the church to a women's shelter. And you've got all these ladies who've left abusive situations. They're finding hope and help in a women's shelter, but oftentimes they don't have any way to communicate with their family. They don't have any way to search for jobs and really kind of take some of those next steps they need to get back on their feet. And one of the people who was helping out with them said, you know what, it'd be great if we could get a computer down here so that these folks could email their family, let them know they're okay, so that they could begin to work on a resume, maybe start looking online and applying for jobs. So they went on the city and they posted a need and they said, hey, does anybody have a computer they could donate to the women's shelter? And almost immediately someone jumped in and said, hey, you know what, I've got a computer, I'd love to donate it, but it's got a bunch of personal information on there, family photos, that kind of thing, and I'd love to get that off before I gave it away, but I'm not a computer guy, I don't really know how to do that. Somebody else saw that, jumped in and said, you know what, I am a computer guy. If you can get the computer to me, I will get all that data off for you, burn it to a disk, make sure that you have your personal information. I'll then wipe it clean and make sure it's updated and ready to go for this women's shelter. Another guy jumps in and says, hey, you know what, I've got one of those 3-in-1 printers. I don't know if anybody needs to print off a resume or whatever, but if you could use it, you could have that too. And by the end of one day, here's this volunteer walking into the women's shelter with a new computer and a new printer for these women to be able to use. And what I loved is I talked to the mission pastor at this church, and they said, the old way this used to work is someone would have called me and said, hey, does the church have a computer they could donate, or do we know anybody that's got a computer that could donate? And I would have spent half the day on the phone trying to find one, and at the end of the day, that women's shelter would not have had a new computer. The city made it so easy for someone within the church to identify a need and to go and meet that need. We simply enabled the body to be the body. It was a beautiful thing. I love that story. There's lots of other stories. One of my other favorite ones, and I'll share this real quick, different church in South Carolina. It's a Baptist church. They work with a children's home, and there's a little girl in this children's home, about 12 years old. She wanted to go to a math and science fair, but she didn't have the money to pay the $75 registration fee. And someone in the church heard about this, so they went on the city and said, hey, would anybody be willing to sponsor this little girl to go to this math and science fair? And it was like a race. Everybody wanted to sponsor this girl. Within 11 minutes, someone had signed up and said, I will sponsor that girl to go to the math and science fair. I was talking to the executive pastor at the church, and he said, you know what happened? He said the Sunday after that need was posted and filled, I had people coming up to me in church and putting cash in my hand and saying, hey, that little girl's going to need to be able to buy lunch at the fair. Will you make sure she gets this? Again, the body of the church seeing a need within the community, putting it out there for the rest of the church to respond to, and now the city is a vehicle, it's a tool for the church to go and be the church in the world. Last thing I want to show you about what can be done in groups is events. Events are really fun. Anything can be an event. Maybe you guys are hosting a barbecue and you want to put the barbecue out there and people can come and sign up and say, I want to be a part of it. Other things that can be events, maybe a neighborhood cleanup. We'll go into one right here. It's a neighborhood cleanup. And hey, we want to tackle this one area of town, clean it up a little bit, and really bless the neighborhood that way. So if I look at this event, I can see the date that it's occurring. I can see the time. I can see on a map where it's occurring. I can RSVP to it so you know everybody who's coming and who's not coming. And not only that, but we said for this event, it's a cleanup. We need people to bring some things. And so when this event was created, we said, hey, can you bring some items? Can you bring a broom? Can you bring some garbage bags? And maybe I've got a rake I can bring. And if I say, yeah, I'm going to bring a rake, I'll go ahead and type that in. And maybe I'm willing to fill a role. Maybe I'm willing to be a truck driver. Great. I'm willing to be a truck driver. Great. I'm filling that. I respond. The next person to come in knows how many rakes are still, we still need. They know what roles still need to be filled. It makes this really, really easy to manage events in a single place. I don't know if you've tried to do something like a barbecue and use like an email distribution list to try to get everybody to sign up for an item, and all of a sudden you have this string of like 32 emails and you have to read through every single one of them. City gets rid of that for you. You no longer have to use things like Evite because the city will actually manage your invitations, your responses. You can share this outside of the city. We have a function called the Plaza, which allows you to take this information, share it publicly so somebody who's not in your city, at your church, would be able to look at it, see the event, sign up for it if they wanted to. So the city simplifies organizing people. So what other things can you do on the city? Again, mention that the city helps you do communication in smaller groups, whether that's a small group or a service team, something like that. All of these things exist at the church level as well. So at the church level, you can go into Grace Fellowship Church, which is the large group here on the city. This is everyone in the church. And if you wanted to send an email out to everybody in the church, you could just start a topic here, or maybe it's a prayer request, and you're going to be able to send a message out to everybody in the church. And so you can stop using maybe some third-party applications that you're used to using, like a Constant Contact or something like that, because the city will actually manage that for you. And now you also have the opportunity to allow for response. Now, if you want to dial that down a little bit, you get the ability to do that. You may say, you know what, we've got 1,500 people at our church, and we don't want anybody to be able to email the entire church at any time. Absolutely understand that. One of the things you can do is you can limit who can actually post content at the church level, which means you're limiting who gets to send an email to the entire church. So if you go into the church settings and you click on options, you can simply check or uncheck the box that says let anyone in the group create topics. If a box is unchecked, if I uncheck let anyone in the group create prayers, now only the people that you identify as leaders for this group have the ability to create prayers for that group. So you do get a lot of influence over who gets to create content and who gets to share content with larger groups. A couple other things that we have in the city that we love to talk about. One, we make it really easy to help people find service opportunities. Growing in your faith, that's another thing that we're passionate about, and helping, equipping the church to help people find ways that they might be able to serve. A couple different ways we do that. One, under the growth tab here, if I click on service opportunities, as a church, you can list all of your service opportunities here on the city, and if I go into the service opportunities and I see something that I'm really passionate about, it's an area that I want to serve in, I can go ahead and research a little bit, find out what they are, and if I say, hey, you know what, I'd really love to be a financial coach, I can click on the I Can Help button. It doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden a financial coach, but what it does is it begins a conversation between me and, in this case, Anders, who's responsible for filling that position. So it makes it, rather than having to take time out from a Sunday morning service and announce, hey guys, we really need some more financial coaches, or competing with all the other ministries in the church to get that in a bulletin, you can put it on the city and it's now available to everybody, and they can go and look at it in real time. And maybe it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, they're looking at it, they can actually say, hey, I want to raise my hand and participate and let the church know I would love to help in this particular area. It might be that I go in and I look at the service opportunities and I don't find anything that's really appropriate for me. Well, the other thing I can do is I can click on account settings and I can let you as a church know what are the areas that I'm talented in, where am I gifted, and if you ever have a need in those areas, you could just let me know and I'd love to help. So under the skills setting, this list, which is totally customizable by you, I can tell you where am I gifted. maybe I'm really good at photography and I'm passionate about it and love to use that skill to help out the church if there's ever a need. If I go ahead and save my skills, as a church, you could say, hey, we want to find all the photographers because we got an event coming up next weekend and we're going to have a huge portion of the community here and we want to document this and we want to be able to share these photos on our website and we want to be able to share and document what this particular event was like. Well, if I go up and I go into the search box right here and I type in the word photography, I just have to start typing the word and you can see art photography comes up as a skill. I click on that and now by campus, the city searches and says, here are all the individuals who've raised their hand and said, I've got a skill in this area, would love to help. And now, great, let's let these people know about the need. You can type in, hey, we have a great event coming up next weekend, and we'd love your help. This email will go out to each one of these individuals, and they can respond and let you know whether or not they're able to help. So again, giving you the ability to contact people, outside of just Sunday mornings or outside of just physical mailings, you can send them an email to a very targeted, specific group of people and let them know what's coming up in the church and ways they might be able to serve in areas where they're gifted. Because we all know that if you serve in an area you're gifted, you're going to be a lot more passionate about it than if you're really just kind of grinding through the one opportunity that was available, but it doesn't fit your skill set or your talents at all. The city has a marketplace, which is a great feature. You can think of this really as like Craigslist for your church. Obviously, there's a disclaimer here that the church is not responsible for items sold, but the marketplace is a great place for people in the church to post jobs, housing opportunities, things that they're trying to sell, or maybe things that they want. I've heard so many churches share stories of ways that people in the church have been blessed by using the marketplace, finding roommates or houses for rent. I know one guy who was on staff at a church needed a good used car. He posted on the city under wanted. He said, hey, does anybody have a used car that is really reliable that they'd be willing to sell me? Somebody within the church said, I know you. I'm on the finance committee. I know what you make. I actually have a used car sitting in my driveway. I'm going to give this car to you. So I'm not saying that you get a car if you buy the city, but you might. And that's worth considering. Other things that we have here on the city, we do have online giving. Folks ask that all the time. Hey, is there a giving function to the city? Absolutely. We do have online giving. You can set up credit card giving, ACH transactions. You can set up recurring gifts if you want. So if I click on giving and it takes me in here, I can select the campus if I want to give to a specific campus. I can select a fund if you allow restricted giving within your church. And I could say, I really want to give to the general fund and I want to give $100. And you know what? Maybe I actually want to make another gift too, and I want to give to the youth retreat as well. And I want to give $50 to that. Great. I can then schedule that and say I want that to happen immediately, or maybe I want it to happen on payday, which is in the future. Or I want it to be a recurring gift every 2 weeks or maybe twice a month when I get paid. I get paid on the 1st and the 15th of the month. I can set that up, and I can set up recurring giving on the city. I can also go in and see the history of my giving. We give you tools on the administrative side, and I'll show you this in just a moment, where you can go in and you can track gifts to an individual, because maybe I write a check and I put it in the offering plate. Great. I can go in now, put that on an individual's profile. They can see the history of all of their giving right here on the city. So if I scroll down, you can see all the gifts that Israel has made over the last year. I can see the different areas he's given to, and I can see what he's pledged versus what he's given under the different funds. And then Israel can obviously go in and he can run his own giving report, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And maybe he's self-employed and needs to file taxes 4 times a year. He doesn't have to call the church and say, hey, can you fax me my giving statement for the last quarter? He can just go get it on his own. So the giving module, great way to help people just do that one more thing that they're involved with in the church in one place. You know, giving people a platform that is all of their different connection points within the church. I don't have to have different logins for giving over here and my small group over here and finding service requests over here. The city gives you one platform where folks can do all of their engagement in one place. So I've shown you a lot of the functionality of the city. By no means have I shown you everything, but want to keep moving and jump into the admin panel. I told you I was going to show you what does this look like then for staff members. If I want to track information about people or I want to get information about people, how can I do that? Well, if I click on the admin link right here, because I'm an admin, I can jump in and take a look at some things on the backside. One, First of all, the city is very customizable in terms of its look and feel for the church. You get to customize your logos, the background colors, things like that, so that it mirrors what your themes are, or maybe your branding as a church. You can do that right here under design. Under site settings, you can change terminology so that they match things that you have going on within your church. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see that the church has a campus. Maybe you don't call it a campus. Maybe you call it a site. Great, you can change that right here. Or maybe you have community groups, and our church doesn't call it community groups. We call it small groups. You just type in the word small instead of community, or in this case, journey. Update it, and now throughout the city, it's going to be called small groups. So we give you the ability to use the language that you prefer. You can see that with this menu and the admin layout, it's actually really easy. You don't need to be a database whiz or a computer genius to figure out how to use the administrative side of the city. Again, our designers really care about a great user experience, and that's true for the admins and the staff of the church as much as it is the congregant. If I want to go and I want to look up an individual and maybe change their information, I can do that here on the city. All I have to do is start typing in their name under user, and it will show me possible matches as soon as I start typing in a name. So I can look up Quincy Rasputin, and I can see his login information, his email address. I can see his profile information, how long he's been a member of the church. You can track these things in the city. His skills list, that whereas Quincy can update it, an admin can update it too. If I scroll down a little bit on this page, I can change his address, his phone number, things like that. The great thing about this is individuals can update their own information. So the idea is, hopefully the administrators in the church don't have to go in and update phone numbers on a regular basis. They don't have to go in and update addresses anymore, because individuals are able to do that on their own. I can go in and I can see Quincy's family right here. I can see spouse information. I can see information about kids. We track attendance. We give you the ability to do that to events on the city, so you can see different things that Quincy's attended. There's also a place back here for notes. So on Quincy's profile, you can put notes that are very specific to different roles within the church. Maybe you only want finance people to see a particular note because maybe Quincy received a benevolence gift. You could also say, no, this one's really for group admins. Maybe I want to put a note in that they can see. I can add a file to Quincy's profile as well. So maybe Quincy drives the church van once in a while, so we have a copy of his driver's license and his insurance card. I could scan that to a PDF or something like that and upload it right here as a file, and that will be attached to his profile. Now, Quincy will have no idea what notes these are that are attached to him, because this is done through the administrative panel. But as a church, sometimes you need to be able to keep administrative notes about people, and you can do that all back here. Now, maybe there are things that you want to track as a church that we've never thought of. That's entirely possible, so we give you the ability to add custom fields to an individual. And if you want to track hair color and shoe size and education level and occupation, things like that, you can do that and add custom fields of things that you track about individuals within the city. A lot of different statistics and metrics that we track in the city as well. There's a lot of measurables. You may want to know how many people are signed up, how many of those people are members, how far away do they live from the church on average, how many small groups do we have in the church, how many people actually logged into the city in the last week, do we know how engaged people are. We give you a lot of different metrics and statistics so you can measure how effective is the city being for us. The next thing I want to talk to you all about is the children's ministry module of the city. We get questions all the time. Hey, do you have a kids check-in, something like that? We do. We're very specific, though. We don't really call it children's check-in. And the reason we don't call it children's check-in is because when we were designing this and trying to figure out what it should be, we realized that a lot of the check-in solutions that are out there, they're really just inventory management of kids. There's no ministry involved in that. And everything we do, our heart is all about what's the ministry of this particular technology. And so we call this a children's ministry module. Yes, it's a check-in feature, but we tie it to the communication platform of the city. So not only can you check kids in, but now you have a communication platform to reach out and engage with parents about what's going on in the children's ministry. So let me walk you through a quick demo of how it works. It's barcode scanning and label printers. So I walk up, and if I scan a barcode, it will automatically look me up and pull up information about my kids if I've already gone through this process. I can check the kids that I'm checking in right now, and I'm checking in Robert, and any special instructions for this week. If I hit finish check-in, it will print out a label for my kids. I can put it on their back, and it will print out a checkout receipt for me. I'm done, cycles back to the first screen, and the next person coming up can go ahead and check their kids in. So it's a really fast process. Worked with a lot of churches that have come on board and started using the children's ministry module. One church in Winston-Salem, they told me, we were able to cut in half the number of kiosks that we had for check-in because we didn't need them anymore because the city was so much faster. So rather than having 10 kiosks where people were checking kids in, we cut it to 5, and then the people who used to man those other 5 kiosks, they're actually in the back now actually working with kids, which was the point in the first place. That's why they volunteered. The city's also easy for somebody who's never been to your church before. And this is actually another assimilation piece, and we're going to talk about how that works. So if I've never been to the church before, I come in and I hit this check-in button right here. Hopefully you have somebody working with them to help them through this process, simply because that's a lot friendlier, and you want to have that warm touch. But the city actually is easy enough that somebody could walk up totally cold and figure out how to do it. So if I'm working with somebody and they say, hey, I'm not a city user, great. Let me capture your information. So we want to put in their name. Hey, can I get your email address from you? And can I get your phone number? Great. We're going to give you a call if anything happens with your kids today. Okay, great. Next thing we want to do is, hey, do you have a barcode on you that you would like to use? I already used that email. So that would tell me that I'm already in the system, and I now be able to look that up using that email address. So I'm making up a new email address here. So next thing it's going to ask me is, hey, great, do you have a barcode that you normally carry? Now, as a church, if you want to give out barcodes, you can do that. We have churches that have printed their own because they want their logo on people's keychains. But on my driver's license, I have a barcode. On my gym membership card, I have a barcode. On my keychain, I've got one of those little tags from my grocery store so I can get discounts every time I go in. I can use any barcode I want, and if I use the one on my keychain, chances are I always have that with me when I come to church because I drive. So I can use that one week after week if I want. If I don't have one, I can say, hey, I don't have one with me, and the city will make one for me. Want to say that I can have up to 3 barcodes associated to myself. Any one of those barcodes will pull up my kids. My wife can have 3 different barcodes because she has a different driver's license and a different barcode on her keychain than I do. She can have 3 different barcodes that will also pull up our kids. So really well thought out process here. I'm going to ask the city to go ahead and make me one. It's going to print one out on the label printer. Next thing it's going to ask me is, hey, can you tell us about your kids? So I'm going to go ahead and put in that I have a boy, and his name is Sonny, because I thought that was a very original name for a boy. And it's going to ask me for his date of birth. Now, up in the right-hand corner, you can see the group assignment. This group assignment, you build out your own check-in group, so you identify the parameters around them. But when I change the date of birth right here, and I say, hey, my son was born in 2009, it's automatically going to put him in the group assignment based on his birth date. Now, my wife happens to be really bright, and so I'm sure our kids are going to be really bright, and my kid's going to be advanced, so he should probably hang out with the 4- and 5-year-olds. You can override the group assignment and put a child in a group assignment as appropriate when they're checking in for the first time. The idea of the automatic assignment is it's kind of the 80-20 rule. It gets almost everyone in the right group the first time, and then you can work out the exceptions. I can type in any allergies or medical issues. This will be a permanent line that prints out on my child's label every week. So if my child is allergic to milk and I put that on here, every time his label prints out, it will say allergies milk on here. And then I can say add more children if I want, or I can say I'm done. Takes me to the next page, which we just saw, which is, hey, who are you checking in for today's event? I can say I'm checking in Sonny. Click on that. Finish putting any special instructions. These would be instructions for just this week. Maybe he didn't sleep well last night, so he's really grumpy. Or I could say, hey, you know what? Please don't give him a snack today because he's on a medication. That will print out on his label. I finish the check-in, prints out the label for him, parent receipt for me, and I'm done. The city's children's ministry module will work for churches, whether you use pagers or if you use call boards and you want to assign a number to each child. This is flexible and can go either way. So you can continue to church however you normally do it and run your children's ministry in that way. Now, what's great about this is, like I said, it's not just check-in, it's also ministry. So you've captured information about me. I've never been to your church before. You've got my name, you've got my phone number, you've got my email address, and you know that I have a 3-year-old. You can email me an invitation to join the city. You could send an email to everybody who checked a child in today, and you can post on the city and say, hey, everyone, I want to let you know what we talked about in Sunday school today. And we talked about Jonah and the whale and how important it is to listen to God when he calls out to you. Otherwise, you could get swallowed by a fish. You could send out questions to parents and say, here's some questions you might want to ask over dinner this week. When you post this, you're posting it in a group on the city for all of these parents. They can respond to these questions and actually share with one another the responses of their kids. Or maybe they have a prayer request, and you can invite them based on the fact that you know that I'm a parent of a third grader. You can invite me into a group for parents of third graders. You're inviting me into a place of community with other people in my life stage, and I can go and post a prayer request in that group that says, hey, other parents of third graders, what do I do in this situation? My kid won't stop eating paste. Other parents can respond and tell me what the best brand is that's the least toxic, or at least the best flavor. Whatever's appropriate. You can invite me into a place of community simply based on the knowledge that you have about me from me checking my kids in. So again, it's not just check-in, it's also community. Like I said, you can invite someone to join the city from their check-in. You can invite them into a place of community based on their life stage. And you can also simply say, hey, welcome to the church. Thanks so much for joining us today. So we give you tools to send out an appropriate message in a way that works for your church. So I can't tell you how well the city's going to work for you with any kind of a promise. I don't know what your situation is as a church. What I can tell you is how has the city worked for the churches that are already using it. So if we look at all the churches that are using the city, and we've got about 1,000, give or take, as of today on the city, and we look at those churches, and particularly we look at the churches that have been on for a year or more, which means they've gone through their training, they've rolled out to their congregation, and now they're really, they've hit their stride and they're using the city well. I can tell you how they're doing. And we measure two numbers in particular that are really important. And we'll give you the ability to measure these numbers. It's very easy. One is called adoption. And adoption means how many people have signed up to use your instance of the city. So if you're a church of 100 and you have 75 people sign up to use the city, that means you have 75% adoption. Now, the other number we measure is engagement. Of those 75 people, how many people have logged in and used the city in the last week or the last month? And you can measure engagement either way. Our average adoption across all the churches that have been on the city for a year or more is over 90%. That's an incredible number. That means if you have 1,000 people in average attendance at your church, and that includes little kids who aren't actually signing up for the city, if you're a church of 1,000 in average attendance, you're going to have 900 people signed up to use your instance of the city if you're average like the rest of the church is using the city already. Our average engagement is over 70%. That's an extraordinary number to know that 70% of the people in our church are actually signing in or engaging via email and participating on the city. Most churches, when I ask them, hey, do you have any kind of tools to measure how people are communicating during the week? No, we have no idea. There's some Facebook groups or some Google groups and things like that, but we don't have access to information about the people participating in them. Maybe one guy went off and started on his own, so we're not admins on it. We don't even know what's going on. And even for those churches that they are their own admins of their Facebook groups, things like that, they don't have anywhere near 90% adoption or 70% engagement. Those numbers are really incredible. And it doesn't have anything to do, or might have a little tiny bit to do, with the city being really great. The city is great, but it's just a tool. What's great is the ministry that your church is doing. And now the city gives you a vehicle for allowing people to communicate with one another, to engage with one another. And it's the church body going and being the church that drives those incredible adoption and engagement rates. And we simply give you a platform to use in order to do that. Again, I want to say thank you so much for taking some time to look at the city today. Today was just a general overview. There's a lot we didn't talk about. So if you have questions or you want to go deeper, feel free to give us a call. Our phone number is right here, 877-978-4324, or you can send us an email at connect@onthecity.org. We'll get back to you, answer any questions you have. We can talk about pricing. We can talk about implementation and timelines and things like that. We can go into any specifics around some of the functions and features if there are questions that you have. Thanks a lot. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.